We're four friends who live across the globe
and share a love of Bon Appétit's YouTube channel.
So we came together to bring you our thoughts on what BA serves up.
And try our hands at recreating their dishes.
Welcome to Bon Appétit!
Hi, I'm Amanda.
Hey, it's Justine.
Hi, it's LJ.
And it's me, Meg.
Yeah. Welcome back.
Welcome back to you.
The crew's back together.
Oh, we all made it here. Some of us barely alive.
See if you can guess which one.
Yeah, which one of us is hungover? It would be me.
Chug, chug, chug. Yeah, we are back doing another episode of Bon Appétit, recapping, and what a grand bunch of episodes we have.
Right.
Oh my goodness. We've got 12 episodes to talk about, 2 of which are Thanksgiving. We got a couple Diwali. We've got a couple Dia de los Muertos. Like, all the holidays are happening. Let's do it.
It's happening.
Holiday avalanche.
Oh my goodness. But before we get to that, of course, we always kick things off by talking about what we've been up to culinary-wise. So LJ, do you want to start us out?
Yeah, so the temperature's dropped, so the clocks have gone back, things are dark earlier, like there's less daylight. And when that happens, I really like to dig out my comfort food recipes. And one of my favourite comfort foods is lasagna. I love lasagna. But I often find when you do the traditional lasagna with meat, it's a little heavy for, like, you can't have that every day. Like, that's just not good for you. So there's one lasagna recipe that I like that I've made before that I actually dug out and did again that is lighter. So instead of using meat, I think you'll be pleased with this, Justine, because it doesn't use meat, so it might be vegan, but it's definitely not vegan because there's a fuck ton of cheese.
All the cheese.
But instead of using meat, it uses like a butternut squash and sage type mixture. So you roast the squash and then you mix it with some sage. I think there's some other herbs in there, and it kind of makes this kind of paste. And then you layer that with your sheets of pasta, the butternut squash. There's a ricotta mixture, like a ricotta mascarpone mixture. And that's like your cheese sauce. So it's a little bit of a lighter cheese than what you would have in a traditional lasagna as well. And then on top, you just put loads of Parmesan on the top. So it's not like healthy. Like, please, let's be real. You still want some comfort. But it's not like, it doesn't feel like you're eating like this massive meat cheesy like feast. It's just like a good meal. And what I did when I made it was I actually made 2 and I froze one of them so that smart, right? Because you only have to cook everything once. You just do 2 dishes, and then I chuck one of them in the freezer, and it meant that I had that yesterday as like a really easy, all I had to do was put it in the oven, and it was like a homemade amazing lasagna that I just made once. So I had a great time with my butternut squash lasagna, and I recommend you look for alternative lasagna dishes.
Nice.
Excellent.
Seasonal lasagna. Sounds great.
Yeah.
That sounds cool. Meg, what do you have?
So I made 3 Bon Appetit, or basically recipes. One was that just keeps getting better lentil salad that LJ described in a previous episode. I thought that it sounded so good that I had to make it too. Made it for myself, ate it all week for lunch. Really loved it. I'd probably make it again. And speaking of holidays, it was just recently Halloween. I used Eliza Arbarbinal's recipe on basically for roasted pumpkin seeds with paprika and cayenne. Not that you really need a recipe to roast pumpkin seeds, but I thought I'd just use their method so that I could talk about it for the podcast. And finally, I made Carla's lemon ginger brew. Really easy recipe.
Ooh.
Only 3 ingredients, which is fresh ginger, lemon juice, I guess 4 ingredients technically, water and maple syrup or agave. I really liked it. Really strong ginger flavor. I'm not sure if I did something wrong, though, because the ginger almost immediately separated from the water. I would let it sit for just seconds and I could see the layers start to form, whereas the picture online is this like beautifully incorporated ginger brew. So I don't know if I needed to grate the ginger more finely, or maybe I didn't simmer it for as long as it needed, but I really enjoyed it. Really strong kind of like tonic that made me feel healthier, at least.
That sounds great. And also we'll be talking a lot about ginger.
Yes. I really felt Brad's fear of the grater.
Were you inspired by Brad's video to do the ginger?
No, I made it before I watched the ginger beer episode. Okay. I just thought it sounded like a good recipe.
Yeah, good for this time of year when you're all like colds and flu around.
Yeah, trying to stave off those colds.
Yeah.
Amanda, I saw you posting some pics on social medias about some party foods you've encountered for Halloween.
Yes, I've been to several Halloween parties, including one last night. I probably should have eaten more food at that one. Instead of like 2.5 cookies. So the most interesting one with food, though, my brother, he got to have his kids for Halloween this year. And so after trick-or-treating, where it got super duper cold and was like 40-mile-an-hour wind gusts here, it was, instead of braving the cold even longer, he had a little party at his house. And he made so many like interesting Halloween themed and it was what I found kind of interesting is it was like the stuff that we talked about for our Halloween special, where we were like, oh, we're doing the classier stuff, and then normally you get things like, let's look like eyeballs and all of that. Well, he went in that direction, but it was really good. Like, he made mummies, which were like hot dogs in like biscuit or crescent roll. Yeah. And he even put like the little eyes and stuff on it. And he did deviled eggs. Well, I should say his girlfriend did deviled eggs because we bonded over peeling eggs and how it's horrible. And
I was going to say, when you saw them, did you get PTSD flashbacks?
I was like, I can eat these. I didn't have to make them. Yes. But they were like green. It was, they did food coloring, so it was green. And then she like also dipped the egg itself in some sort of like food coloring, so the egg itself was like modeled, so it looked it was cool. But then for me, my favorite, my brother made spiders, which were meatballs, and he had stuck linguine into the meatball before cooking it. And so it had like little legs.
Yeah, clever.
And
That's
then
really
he
cute.
did black food dye.
Oh, wow.
And they were so good. And it was so weird because you have like this black thing on your plate with like all these, you know, legs and stuff. And then you cut into it and it's just a regular meatball.
It sounds like your brother's been hanging out on Pinterest.
Yeah, right? That's really clever. I hadn't thought
That
of
is
that,
clever.
but that works. Yeah.
Yeah. It was really cool. And I was like, oh my gosh. And he's like, I really miss entertaining people. Thank you so much for coming over and making this a party. And we were like, thank you for free food. So. What about you, Justine?
Yeah, I haven't had a ton of time to cook these days. But there was one dish I wanted to highlight, because if you remember from my vegan Snickers episode, I have a ton of leftover dates. So I found a recipe online for vegan cheese and bacon stuffed dates. And they're so freaking good and really easy to make. Like, it's just like vegan cream cheese, and then you like flavor that with, you know, herbs and whatever. I can't remember because my brain is broken. And like, actually a lot of people don't know this. A lot of like bacon flavored products are just like little like bacon bits. Like I use like the McCormick little bacon bits are vegan. Like they're not made with actual meat.
I did know that. There are quite a few potato chip brands over here that do bacon flavor and they're vegan, and people are always surprised when they learn that. But yeah, I did know that. Yeah.
it's the same bacon bits I think you would use and make. They are vegan. And so, yeah, you just make that mixture. You, like, stuff them in the dates, and then you bake them just for, like, a little bit. So they come out, like, kind of warm and gooey. They're so good. And I looked so fancy making them. Oh, my gosh. Like, win-win of, like, ease. And I'm like, look at me.
They looked really good. I can tell you were proud of them because I think I saw them on like 3 different social platforms or something.
True.
And I got a text message of them.
It's easy. I don't have a lot of time with, like, I'm working full time and editing 2 podcasts and commute and all other personal life. So I really, really miss cooking and baking as much as I was able to before. But, like, when I do it now, it's, like, super, super special to me, and I really enjoy it.
Good.
Aw.
That's my life. But anyway, that's not entirely what we're here for today, because we gotta get going on this. We've got so much to talk about.
So much.
On the menu for today's episode, we have recreating Guy Fieri's trash can nachos from Taste. Carla makes roasted pork from the test kitchen. Every way to cook salmon, 43 methods. Pastry chef attempts to make gourmet ruffles on Gourmet Makes. Molly and Carla try to make the perfect mashed potatoes and gravy, which is Making Perfect Thanksgiving, Episode 2. Brad makes ginger beer on It's Alive. Priya makes red pepper and potato sabzi. Andy learns how to cook Senegalese food. Professional chefs blindly taste test cured meats. Chris and Rick try to make the perfect stuffing on Making Perfect Thanksgiving, Episode 3. Trying everything on the menu at a famous NYC taco shop featuring Rick Martinez. And Rick makes pork tamales from the test kitchen.
We got a triple Rick at the end.
Triple Rick.
The Rick hat trick.
Yeah.
Yes. We're getting started with recreating Guy Fieri's trash can nachos from Taste. You know I love it. It's Chris's reverse engineering.
I feel like he kept guessing it was Guy Fieri in every other episode. And finally they were like, oh yeah, we're just going to give him the craziest Guy Fieri thing possible.
That's my first note. Finally, Guy Fieri.
Yeah. A stopped clock is right twice a day. Finally, it stopped on Guy Fieri. I thought when they pulled out this recipe and showed what they were going to try and get him to recreate, I was like, this is the hardest one yet, because I would not know where to start with this, because it's just like one big... I mean, obviously, you'd be able to guess that they were nachos, but like how you separate all the different components that make up the big tower, I just thought this was so difficult. So I was really proud of Chris that he did a good job.
Yeah, it was just a giant pile of ingredients.
Yeah, right?
I think it's crazy that he can, like, pick up an onion and be like, this one is a white onion or red onion, and this onion was in a salsa.
Yeah, how are you supposed to know?
Yeah, he definitely identified the raw onions versus the onions in the pico de gallo, which is pretty mind-blowing. And I also liked that on the second pass, he found the little bits of cheese that were just sprinkled on that weren't part of the queso. So
How does he do it?
I don't know. He is so impressive. I'm just waiting for one of these reverse engineering episodes where he really, really nails it. I was really impressed by this one, but then there was obviously that huge mistake of misidentifying the protein as pork belly.
Yeah,
it's just such a shame because it's the literal meat of the dish, and that just happened to be the one thing that he misidentified. And I also feel that Rick was maybe the harshest of the judges we've had so far, in my opinion. So I was wondering if they had a different judge, if perhaps he would have scored higher.
Oh, maybe. The other thing I didn't like about this episode is that they gave him a lifeline on how it's constructed. I really wanted him to, like, figure that out, and they didn't let him.
No way. No way he would have figured that out.
He might have done.
He did figure out that it was a mold. So I think the fact that
he was on the way.
Yeah. I think that they just took pity. They were like, well, he got the general idea, so we'll give him the exact mold.
But I do love that his lifeline was Claire.
Yeah.
Bonus Claire.
It's like he's always there to support her, so she came in to support him.
Exactly. Yep. She's probably like, I know those feels, bro, from doing gourmet makes all the time.
Did any of you instantly get a little turned off by the nachos because they were called trash can nachos?
Not really, because I knew it wasn't an actual trash can.
I love how he referred to them as Jamie Oliver's Insanity Nachos.
That was so funny. I thought that was hilarious as well.
I also love that Chris, the super taster, at one point said he smelled something cool and crunchy. And I was like, you can smell temperature? You can smell texture?
It's the corn situation.
Oh, bless him.
There were so many classic lines in this. My favorite thing that he said in it, which is kind of like a life lesson, is sometimes you have to stop and think about what you're tasting instead of what you expect to taste.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's deep. Deep like a trash can.
And then he's like, anyway, here's some pork belly that I'm 110% confident about.
Yeah. I also learned a lot about queso this episode because I don't have it a lot over here. We don't, as we've discussed, Mexican food isn't particularly authentic over here. So I didn't really know that queso was basically Mornay sauce. And it was very interesting when in his last attempt, the queso didn't work and he had to do queso CPR because I was just like, oh, how's this going to work? How's it going to work? But it did work. He saved it. Even though that wasn't how you would have made it if you were doing it properly, he managed to nail the kind of the taste and the look and the texture well enough. So I've learned a lot about queso this episode that was useful.
But it kind of sucks that like Rick explicitly told him that there's always spices in a queso, and then Chris didn't do it at all.
Right. Yeah.
Rick
that's
was
true.
definitely giving him a heavy hint, and Chris sadly did not pick up on it.
No.
Also, he admit that he didn't taste the steak. He just picked it up and felt it and said pork belly, but he never put it in his mouth to taste it.
Do you think they just didn't show that? Because it would surprise me if he didn't taste it.
He said it at the end. He's like, I didn't get the steak because I didn't taste it, and that's like my bad and my ego.
Yeah,
you know?
totally. Like I missed that. That is Chris, really. You've disappointed us, but most of all, you've disappointed yourself. So I think you can live with that.
Aww. That's okay. I still love these episodes. I love this show. I love Chris. He's amazing.
For sure. Yeah. I couldn't do it.
I get excited by the music every time. Boom, 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 boom.
His theme song is on fire. Yes.
Wonderful.
His little slow-mo intro is pretty great. I'm glad that they've been including that with every episode.
And that every time he goes shopping for ingredients, he scoots around on his trolley like a 5-year-old. It's so cute.
So adorable.
Yes.
And they got a nice hug at the end. That made me happy.
That was sweet. And also kudos to him for getting the beans 100% correct.
Yeah.
That was
nailed
amazing.
That.
Yeah.
Yeah. So good.
But what's that fucking cheese again?
Cheese is his
Return
nemesis.
of Guess That Fucking Cheese.
He should have gone as cheese for Halloween. It's his nightmare.
Red Leicester.
Right? Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So from that, we have Carla making roasted pork. And I was very excited about this because it's an Indian dish that,
Yeah.
as I mentioned in the intro, we got a couple of these because of Diwali.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that makes sense.
And also it was on their, what was it? Their top 10, hot 10?
Yeah, it was from one of the restaurants, yeah. Which I liked. I liked they've had these little like bonus nods to the Hot 10 series because I've seen a lot about the Hot 10 on their like platforms, and obviously it's been a big thing in their magazine and they did the big party and whatever, so it's been good to see it acknowledged through the videos that they've done recently as well. I love this episode. It looked really like the recipe looked absolutely delicious. That pork at the end just looked like amazing. I was desperate to dive in. Sadly, you can't do that on a video. I also really liked the salad that she put with it because I don't know about you guys, but there's something about salad ingredients sliced via a mandolin super finely that just makes them taste like exponentially better than just a regular old salad. So I was really pleased when she got her mandolin out.
I feel like that's the only way I've had fresh fennel prepared is sliced on a mandolin.
Really?
So I wonder if that's just the way you do it. I'd be interested to have fennel prepared differently, but I love fennel. I thought the salad looked delicious.
I roast fennel more often than not, and that's really nice.
I don't know what fennel is or tastes like, I don't think, and I was not into this salad.
Oh, fennel's nice. Although it has this weird, it's not weird, I like it. It's like quite aniseedy taste. So if you like those sorts of flavors, you'll probably
Black
like
licorice.
fennel. Yeah.
Yeah, I've never had anything fennel like that. My grandma used to put fennel seeds on pizza, and I
fennel
hated
seeds.
it.
Oh,
You get fennel seeds in sausage quite often.
I
Yeah.
love fennel seeds.
I don't like licorice, so that sort of, I don't know, fennel's taste just doesn't work for me.
Well, it does go really well with pork, guys. So you are missing out.
I agree with LJ. I really wanted to reach into the video and eat this. All of the spices in the spice mix just sounded so delicious to me. And of course, most of these from the Test Kitchen episodes are really a spotlight on the recipe, but I feel like this one was even more so than some other from the Test Kitchen videos. There wasn't much goofing around. There wasn't much silliness. It was like, let's celebrate this delicious piece of pork and this delicious salad. And I liked that they got the chef on the line too.
Yeah, I love that they explained about blooming the spices and like what that does in terms of flavor.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, this is not something that I would necessarily know, and I've never worked with these spices before because I cannot do spicy food at all because I'm from Massachusetts. But it was a pleasure learning about it.
So you wouldn't bite into a serrano like poor Carla did.
No, oh my gosh.
I don't think I would do that, and I do like spicy food. So.
I wouldn't have either. And Carla shan't do it again, as she said.
Bad
I like how
idea.
it built on her though. She's like, oh, like it just kept like,
Yeah. It didn't cut away from her. Oh god, that was torturous.
The music just kept building and getting more dramatic.
Meg, I was going to ask you, has Carla managed to convince you round to being okay with pork being pink, or are you still nervous?
I will say that if I made this recipe, I would really try my best to do as they instruct, to just cook it to 135, because looking at those slices of pork, I thought it looked delicious. I would not be afraid to eat that. So yeah, I may be slowly coming around.
Yay!
I love hearing more about Andy's mortar and pestle obsession, like every episode.
Yeah. Oh, isn't it so cute that he got one for her? I just think,
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever worked with anyone that I've loved that much that I've got them a present the first year I worked with them. Like, and I've worked with some nice people, but I just thought that was so cute. What a sweetheart.
I thought that was quite sweet too.
But I also thought it was funny that he hasn't got her a present at all since.
Just trying to win over the new boss.
Maybe she was just a bit like, oh, this is a bit much. And he was like, oh my God, I'm never doing that again. How embarrassing.
Especially if he got a special one from Japan, like his
Right?
own favorite one. You know you watch too much Bon Appetit when you know everyone's favorite kitchen equipment and its provenance.
Okay, so our next video is from Amanda's favorite, Emil. And it's every way to cook salmon.
oh boy. So you know how you guys were having some issues with the steak one? I don't like fish.
Oh.
And so just seeing so much, like, if somebody is cooking fish, I can't be in the house because it turns my stomach. Like,
oh, no.
yes,
Like me and bananas.
yeah. When I learned the hard way with a roommate one time who was cooking fish, and I was just like, oh God, oh God, oh God. And I was like, I'm just going to leave for a little while. So yeah, this was definitely a difficult one for me, particularly the salmon ice cream.
I mean, I have issues with this series of videos, as we've discussed before, as in I feel like a lot of them are just there for comedy value and not to necessarily teach anyone anything. Like, for example, the mailbox. Like, who the fuck is cooking salmon in a mailbox?
The mailbox. Oh my god, that was hilarious.
Stupid. Like, oh, it's just I don't know. I have little patience for that because it's just silly. The hot tub.
Now
no.
you know that a mailbox can't cook salmon.
Yeah, I kind of. Most people know that, right?
For the comedy bits.
Please tell
Did
me.
you know that before?
Please tell me that most people know that, because if they don't, I just give up.
You're like, gosh, it's so hot in there. I bet it could cook a salmon. No, it's not.
It's like when people try to cook cookies on their car windshield / dashboard when it's really hot.
Yeah, no, it's not good.
I think the gross ones were like the pickled salmon and like the one made in the coffee pot.
Oh no, yeah, the coffee pot one. I was just like, I'm never drinking coffee in a hotel room again if that's what people are doing with them. No,
yeah,
thank
the
you.
coffee pot one really grossed me out. And he said, say you're in a hotel room and you want to cook a piece of salmon and just stop right there, Emil. No one has ever had that thought, ever.
No, I'm
in
saying
the history
no.
of human existence.
I did learn some stuff though in this episode, because turns out salmons are pretty big. I didn't know that. You know, it reminded me of when I saw a documentary of the tuna fishing industry. My dad was watching it one time and I saw a whole tuna for the first time and I was like, oh my God. Like, I just thought, because I'd only ever known of it, like, from a can, so I just assumed they were the same size as a can. So I was just like, it turns out tunas are the monsters of the sea, and salmons
Yeah, they're
are
behemoths.
quite up there as well.
There's lots of different kinds of salmon, though. I'm not
Yeah,
sure if they
is there?
specified what kind in this video. They probably did, and I just missed it.
I know he did, but I can't remember
He did.
exactly what it was.
Yeah, I can't remember.
It was
either.
a sustainable fish that they used, though. He made sure to point that out.
Several sustainable fish.
Yeah.
They're not sustainable anymore because Emil's made them 43 ways.
Jeez. I love fish. Like, fish was the hardest thing for me to, like, quote unquote give up or just stop eating.
Wow, yeah.
So just like seeing him prepare like the sashimi, I'm like, yes,
Oh,
give it to
yes,
me. I love
absolutely.
it so much.
Oh, so
I
good.
want it.
Yeah,
I
I love
love
all the
salmon,
raw
too.
preparations. The raw preparations
Yes.
are my favorite
Yes.
way of eating
Yes.
salmon, because it's just so delicious. You don't need to do anything to it.
Maybe you would even
Yeah.
like that, Amanda, because it wouldn't give you the cooking smell. It would just be some nice,
Yeah.
beautiful, silky, rich, raw salmon.
And it doesn't taste fishy.
Amanda's
It
gone
really
green.
doesn't.
See, I had the opposite with like the steak. When I see that raw, that makes me want to throw up. But
Oh,
like,
no, I love
this
that as
raw.
well.
I'm like, yum.
Honestly, the ice cream didn't gross me out as much as I thought it would, because
No.
it really isn't that far afield from, say, Locke's cream cheese. It's
Right,
kind
yeah,
of the
yeah,
same
yeah.
flavor profile. Of course, I would not be happy if someone gave me salmon ice cream and I was expecting, real ice cream. That would not be great.
But what about the salmon skin chips? That
Yes.
I don't like the wording.
I love salmon
Oh,
skin,
no.
crispy
Yeah,
skin.
salmon skin is so good.
Crispy any skin, to be honest. I mean, I'm just like a real, I don't know, like, what do you call it? Freak for skin.
Yeah, I was going to use this as an opportunity to recommend to everyone listening to try salmon skin sushi. It is so good.
Yes.
The searzal also looked good, where it's crispy on the outside, cold on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
It's me like, yum. Oh, I miss fish.
I do feel like this was one of the first times he really liked the Searzal, because normally he's like, it doesn't work, but he seemed to like it this time.
I also thought it was interesting, again, that the sous vide wasn't great, because people, I just don't understand people who go on and on about sous vide being the ultimate way to cook something. I absolutely refute that, and I feel like this series has supported my case. If I was to ever argue it in court, I would pull these videos out.
All right.
I was also glad that he called out the sort of gimmicky nature of the cedar plank on the grill, because I've never been won over by that either. I
Yeah.
feel like a cedar plank is just a mass conspiracy to get people to put them on their wedding registries and then never ever use them again.
Yeah, I agree. If I never hear the phrase salmon juice again, it will be too soon.
That's a good thing to leave off on. Okay, let's go over. Let's talk about pastry chef attempts to make gourmet ruffles. Yeah. Oh my god, we have to mention like our private conversation about.
Yes, we do. We decided to play Fuck, Marry, Kill with chips.
My favorite kind of game.
We decided to do it with chips that Claire has made on Gourmet Makes.
Mm-hmm. The only way to do it.
Mm-hmm. So we did Ruffles, Doritos, and Pringles.
Yeah, so let us know in the comments. Fuck, marry, kill.
Yep.
Doritos, Pringles, and Ruffles.
Continuing our trend of recent episodes, Meg and I appear to have one hive mind because we have exactly the same decision making on that. I think we both said kill Pringles, fuck Doritos, marry Ruffles.
100%.
And Justine and I killed Doritos,
Oh,
married Pringles,
married
and
Pringles.
Pringles are
You gotta fuck those
reconstituted
Ruffles,
potatoes.
man.
They're not even whole
I was going to say
potato
they're just like
pieces.
mush when they're in
Yeah.
your mouth. They're nothing. Like what? What? They're disgusting.
So good. Goes
they're
down
my
easy.
favorite chip.
No, I'm sorry, guys.
Okay, let's talk about how Claire did.
Yeah.
Yes.
I gotta be honest, this wasn't my favorite gourmet makes for a couple of reasons. One is just as an outside observer, maybe it's different when you're in the weeds, but it just seemed so obvious that the expensive French mandolin was going to get the job done perfectly. And it just seemed like an exercise in futility to sharpen the other mandolin with a Dremel. I just kept asking, why are you doing this? And it felt really manufactured for the video, in my opinion, when I feel like other gourmet makes don't have that feeling. And also I was really concerned about metal shavings just like all over the place.
I was concerned about her hair being down.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. It was very obvious she had never used a Dremel before because it was unsafe in so many ways. And also, I love Claire. I love to see her overcome adversity, but I feel like she was very put upon from the outset of this video. I feel like she approached it with a kind of defeatist attitude before she even got started. Because in the first 2 minutes, she says, I'm going to skip this step. I'm not going to do this. And we're going to go straight to this. I feel like she's just trying to get through these as quickly as she can without enjoying the process.
Really? I thought she did that because she was super confident that she'd be able to nail it.
Maybe.
Yeah, that was how I interpreted it. That instead of defeatist, that it was like, she knew the steps and she knew she could do this one, kind of in like to me it like harkened back to like Oreos, how it was just like she knew what to do and got it done.
Well, maybe defeatist is the wrong word, but I'm still going to go with like put upon. Like she doesn't enjoy doing the video and she's just going to rush
I
through
think
it.
it's that she doesn't like showing the struggle. Like, I just want to show that I can do it. And when we're not showing that, I don't enjoy it. So I think the fact that she was like, I think I know exactly how to do this. We don't need to do any of the other stuff in between. I can just nail it straight away. I think that's what she was gunning for. So I think it's probably the truth is somewhere in between you guys. I think she's put upon the fact that they have to show her going through the process. They can't just show her nailing it, as it were. But also she was very confident that she was gonna nail it as well.
Well, it makes me feel like it kind of sucks that she doesn't have the autonomy to lead her own video.
Right. It's interesting because it's always been this tension with Gourmet Makes, and we've seen that from the interview she's done with people about it. Like, she just doesn't understand why people enjoy seeing her struggle. She doesn't get it, and she finds it really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do think that the whole like crux of the video did turn out to be finding the right tool to recreate the right ridge size. Like that was the thing, that was the struggle, and once she had that, hey, there they are, potato chips, easy peasy.
Yeah.
Well, and also the thing that she was kind of struggling with was the over browning. And then she just looked up online how to not do that. And I thought that was a little disappointing too. Like, oh, I read this article that explains how to avoid the browning. And so it didn't feel like much of a challenge. Yeah. And she also expressed that she was a little disappointed that it wasn't more challenging.
Truth. Yeah. And like something in like Doritos where you're like, what is the flavor of a Dorito? Whereas like these are like, this one's barbecue flavor, this
Yeah.
one's salt and vinegar, this one's sour cream and onion.
Although it did introduce me to something I had no idea about, which is the Canadian all dressed
same.
flavor. Like,
yeah, also,
how are
same.
Canadians geniuses? Like, of course, if you've got barbecue, ketchup, sour cream, and salt and vinegar, why wouldn't you put that all together?
It's so the all dressed are so delicious.
I've never
They're-
had them. I need them in my life.
Oh, you do. I think you would love them. My mother-in-law found some one time, and literally we were just like, "Oh my god, these are amazing," and could not stop eating the all dressed.
I really need to have some of that stuff.
Yeah, I'm
my hands on
disappointed
some.
in my former Canadian coworkers now because they would go back to Canada and they always brought back the ketchup chips, but they never once brought back all dressed, so I haven't had them.
They're keeping them to themselves like a secret in case
Yeah.
the rest of the world comes on and like
Evil Canadians. I do think it's interesting that this is the second teasing of the Mentos.
Mentos. Yeah.
They've never teased anything before, and now they've teased us Mentos twice.
Yeah.
It's also weird that they teased it but also bleeped it, even though they didn't bleep Mentos, the word, in the other episode in which they teased it.
I wonder
Yeah.
if they didn't realize what order it was coming out in or something, because I
Or
also
maybe
picked
they're
up on
like,
that.
people are only going to watch Gourmet Makes and not watch the other ones. Unless you're a
Maybe.
super fan.
like us.
Unless you run a podcast in which you have to watch every single video.
And report back to everyone.
Guys, the next Gourmet Makes is Mentos. You've heard it here first.
Oh no, now they're going to wrong foot us and release a different one, so the Mentos is not the next one. But it's like the one after.
What jerks. They have been releasing them really consistently these days. Like,
Yeah.
I think we've been covering a Gourmet Makes in every recap.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they've
I think
been
we
on the
have.
ball. My favorite thing about this video was Chris acting like Kris Jenner in I think I saw online Meme Appetit or someone did a meme of him taking the photo of Claire using the Dremel, like, you're doing it, you're doing it.
You're doing amazing, sweetie.
Yeah. That was my favorite bit.
All right, so now what we are all very excited for. We love talking Thanksgiving on here. Oh God, LJ, she's gonna talk for the next 8 minutes solid.
She's literally
Everyone
rolling up
is.
her sleeves, which I don't know how that helps with talking into a microphone. But
All right, let's hit it. Molly and Carla make perfect mashed potatoes and gravy.
Oh yeah. Who here loves mashed potato? Me. I love this episode from start to finish. And it's changed my life because that's how I'm going to do mashed potatoes for Thanksgiving from now on. That's the abridged version of what I have to say.
Love it. Love it. Crispy versus mashed. That whole debate.
mashed.
So I thought this was funny when they went out into the street and asked everybody in the world about how they felt about crispy versus mashed, because I feel like you may prefer crispy potatoes, but like I prefer burgers. I also prefer steak, but I'm not going to have those on Thanksgiving. Like, Thanksgiving is about turkey and it is about mashed potato, and like there's no point even asking that question. I'm glad they incorporated a crunchy element to the mash, because that's really elevated mash in my opinion, but I didn't see why this had to be an either or situation.
I thought it was pretty funny that even though they were clearly asking leading questions, that they were fishing for people to say crispy, that in fact the people, the proletariat, still want their mashed potato.
Of course.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, wasn't there one guy who he's like, oh yeah, I like crispy potatoes, and they were like, what about for Thanksgiving? And he was like, well, no, it's mashed potatoes. Like,
Exactly.
Exactly.
yeah.
I think what they're trying to get at with like this and also the stuffing one is that you don't have to just because you've done it before. I don't know.
I know
feel like
I don't
that's the
have
vibe.
to, but I want to. There's something about tradition that people like. People like knowing that they're going to get the same comforting kind of lineup year after year. Like, you can do a twist on it for sure, and you should feel free to be able to do that. But like, there's a reason why people keep coming back to them. It's because it makes them feel like there's a constant, you know, in their lives to cling on to. Like, if nothing else, this year I will be eating mashed potatoes at Thanksgiving. Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel comforted by that.
I was also a little surprised that they couldn't even objectively see why people would like mash. I mean, I like mash because there's that huge dairy element, right?
Yeah.
You've got the butter, you've probably have some sort of creamy milk. That's why I like mashed. I think it's pretty easy to explain why I would like mashed over crispy in certain situations.
Yeah. I did enjoy those
love
kids,
mashed
though, that they were
potatoes.
like, well, I will eat French fries if poached. I was
outta
like,
here with
sure.
your underdeveloped palates. I loved learning about potatoes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me too. Although it was quite difficult for me to follow along because we don't get the same varieties as you guys in the UK. So the whole time I was like, I need to do the UK equivalent because this isn't helping me.
Ooh, report back.
Also, I don't know where I find purple potatoes.
I wonder if they're the same varieties, just with different names. That does seem to happen.
I did wonder
sometimes.
that. I did
Oh,
wonder
yeah.
that, but I'd have to do some research. I think.
I am super interested in picking up some Larats now.
Fingerlings.
Yeah. I've never thought of making mashed potatoes out of fingerling potatoes. Like, honestly.
I
It's
think I've
always been like
had
russet.
russet. Yeah.
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 Russ liked the sound of russet because it was like, oh, it's me.
It's
Me
me.
potato.
Yeah, this was a very enjoyable episode. Of course, the Molly Carla energy is always fun. The sort of drunk aunt energy.
Literally drunk.
Yeah, literally drunk.
Yeah, when I'm drunk, I just
Sharing.
throw salt up my pots too.
Jesus, Mary, and Joseph.
Okay, I did have, I mean, I largely enjoyed this video, but I had a small issue with it where I felt like they didn't do as much like testing, like trial and error with the aromatics in the milk and with the crunchy bits. Like they basically were like, this is it, and that's it. Whereas like I feel like in the turkey one, it was like Brad and Andy were really open to like, let's try lots of different things, and the way they did like the glazes and trying different stuff, where as it felt like they just in this one were like, okay, yeah, of course, that's what we're gonna put in the milk and just like go with it.
They did seem very one and done on a lot of the elements. It was really interesting to see the different approaches because with Brad and Andy, they seemed to come to the agreement that fried was superior, but then they thought, well, let's try to make this more approachable for the home chef.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like Molly and Carla almost went in the opposite direction where they said, let's just make really good potatoes regardless of how approachable it is. Because the variety that they went with is kind of hard to find. I don't know about you guys, but I personally don't know many people with a potato ricer. And also the stock that they made for the gravy required so much additional turkey and or chicken that I wondered how really approachable is this for someone. They would essentially have to make 2 turkeys if they really wanted to replicate the gravy along with their turkey for Thanksgiving.
I looked at the recipe online after because I was curious about those points as well. On the potatoes, they don't specify that you have to use a ricer, which I thought was good. Like they were like a regular potato masher is fine. If you have a ricer, it's even better, you know. But with the gravy, I think they also say you can use chicken wings instead of the turkey wings, which I think is probably more realistic for most people if they're going to try and replicate that at home. But the fact that it's almost, they've written that gravy recipe designed to do that in advance. So there's no way that you're going to be cooking a turkey like a week in advance and then cooking another turkey. Like that's not going to happen. So I feel like getting the chicken wings as a sub, you're going to get a similar flavor. I think it's still going to be delicious, but yeah, I know what you mean. Like it doesn't seem like their intention with it was to make it easy necessarily for the home chef.
Yeah, those are excellent points. I have been finding myself kind of thinking about this versus thinking about perfect pizza. Where, I don't know, at least with making perfect pizza, they were making one thing together, the ultimate one thing. And now this has so many parts and there's so many influences.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure if it's the perfect Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because
Yeah.
at the beginning, I think on the first episode where they showed the round table, they talked about how all of the teams are going to have to keep talking to each other to stay aligned. But I haven't seen any of that in the videos. So I don't know how well this whole... I'm really interested to see the final episode, because that's the first time I think we're going to see the teams seeing how the different dishes they've come up with like work with each other. Like, I know they're using the stock between the stuffing and the gravy, so they have been using each other's elements, but they've not really been talking about how it's going to work as an overall kind of table of food.
I'm really interested to see that too, and to see what I'm sure will be strong opinions emerge from the separate teams, seeing what everyone else has come up with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sadly, we have to move on now, ladies, but don't worry, we've got more Thanksgiving coming at us. All right, now on to Brad makes ginger beer on It's Alive.
I love ginger beer. Did you know that? Fun fact. It's my favourite drink. So I was very excited to watch this episode. Also, not least because when I was a kid, I made ginger beer with my dad. Like, we made our own homemade ginger beer. Now, don't ask me if what we did was in any way similar to what Brad was doing, because I cannot remember. All I remember doing is drinking this like sedimenty like ginger beer at the end that wasn't quite as good as what you'd buy at the store. But I was like, oh, this is great. He's doing what we did all those years ago. So I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I did think it was good. I do think they're also overworking Brad a little bit because he was getting sick, and he's like, okay, I gotta do a costume change and do another one.
Yes.
I think that Brad's health is directly correlated to his ability to speak well. He was really struggling in this episode.
Yeah. I will say, when I went grocery shopping this week, I got an organic lemon because Brad told me to get organic citrus.
Yeah.
So I did. There you go.
That's good. He's helped one person in this world.
It me.
I enjoyed this one a lot, so I was telling my other pals that
You have other pals other than us?
What?
What?
no, you guys, Bon Appetit ladies.
Oh.
Oh, us. Okay.
It was us. Okay.
It's you.
It me.
It me.
I was telling, you guys before we started recording. So I attempted to watch this while under the influence of things, and I just
Don't do
kept,
drugs, kids.
I just kept rewatching like the beginning over and over again. And when he was talking about like the cabbage face, like literally, like it was like a, like a weird like cabbage skin, and I was like, oh man, that's like some Ed Gein shit. And then later on, he was like, said the thing about like no skins, and it was like Ed Gein has left. And in my intoxicated state, I was like, it's reading the video read my mind. So I just kept rewinding it, and I thought I would try to show you guys. I attempted to take a note about this. I don't know if you can read what it says.
Oh.
Brad makes ginger beer. It's alive. Is camera top notch at vein cabbage fills.
Clearly written under the influence.
Yeah. So I'm pretty sure I was saying pre-credits cameos equal top notch.
Top notch. Yeah.
Top notch.
Because I enjoyed Andy and Chris appearing before
Yeah.
everything. Don't take notes while drunk.
No, do not.
So what we've learned here is that Amanda's inebriated note-taking is about on par with Brad's cursive.
Yeah. Did you
Oh my
write
God.
Amanda instead of something else?
I love how he couldn't write beer. He was like, oh, I wrote Brad. Oh, how do you spell
just
beer?
so
There's no
That
D
killed
in it.
me. I loved that he kept writing his own name instead of beer.
He's like, how do you write a B? It's like a regular B, right? And I'm like, what the hell?
At this point, I'm always like, he's our age, guys.
I know. He was
He
born
is.
the same year as me. This is crazy. Bless him.
Yeah, well, when he started talking about Rocco's modern life, I was like, oh yes, he is most definitely our age.
Yeah, that was
Absolutely.
exactly what I
Turn the
thought.
page, wash your hands.
I also, one of the things I loved talking about cameos in this episode was Gabby and Brad's conversation at the end when he was sharing what he'd made with her. I just love their dynamic. Like, Gabby's
too.
very confident with him, happy to tell him when something's not right, whatever, like really at ease with him. They have a really nice working relationship. And so it just made me want them to be the pairing for any test kitchen talks, like pairings that they do in the future, because they just had such a sweet dynamic. It's so funny.
I feel like they are a great team together. She's brutally honest, but she knows that Brad is not going to take offense when she says that it tastes like soap smell.
Yeah.
That was pretty great.
You can tell that he respects her.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
He gave her that
sure.
wonderful knife that we saw in that previous video.
Yeah, it's very cute.
I also like that we got a teaser for further It's Alives with Brad's War on Kevin coming soon.
I want to know what that is.
Who is Kevin?
He briefly walked in like earlier in the video.
Well, so I'm wondering if that's a different Kevin because his title was World's Best Kevin. So I'm wondering if
really
they were
enjoyed
contrasting him with evil Kevin.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think there's a
Remains
different
to be
Kevin.
seen. Yeah.
And we
So
got a
funny.
Delaney. We got a
Delaney.
Delaney appearance.
And we got a Toby Goofy. We got a little Toby Goofy.
Aw,
It was so
So
cute.
goofy.
The one thing that I didn't like about this episode was when Brad ripped off the egg yolk that's been stuck to the wall of the test kitchen for weeks. I was like, what are you doing? And he doesn't even know what he's doing with it. And I'm just like, you can't use that. Throw that
Fermenting
away.
for the hell of it with Brad Leone.
Yeah. That's not
Well,
gonna
and the
make...
fact that he's like, let's just make Chris try it. I was like, oh God, maybe ask for permission. Consent
Yeah,
is
don't
needed.
ever trick someone into eating something that they're not fully informed about.
Especially when it's not it's something that could, make you quite ill.
Don't you know? No one gets botulism anymore.
Next up, we get Priya making red pepper and potato sabzi. Priya, we haven't seen in a while.
Yeah, it's been so long that this is our first solo Priya video for the podcast for recapping purposes. So that's exciting.
I really like Priya and the dishes that she does. I really like her style of cooking, especially when it's something that's from her heritage, because I love Indian food. And I just think she has a really nice personality. She's not really loud and over the top, but she definitely has strong opinions and she's not afraid to share them. And she tells funny stories about her mom. And I just think she's really sweet and nice and I want to see more of her. I also like that she likes bell peppers too, because I feel like that was one thing that I've always been like, why is everyone in the test kitchen so down on bell peppers? They can be nice if you know how to cook them.
Yeah, I like that Brad was her supporter with bell peppers too.
Yeah.
I quite enjoyed this too. I really like her personality. I think she's funny. She seems very easygoing. Maybe that's why she connects with Brad. They both seem to just kind of roll it with it, but, are very knowledgeable at the same time. I thought this looked great. We have more fennel seeds in this like we did with the previous video. Love fennel seeds.
Yeah.
I really laughed at her story about how her mom told her not to eat from a bowl of fennel seeds in an Indian restaurant because there's, quote, pee in there.
As she's handing it to the camera guy.
So no, I might think twice the next time I grab some of those fennel seeds. But everywhere I've seen that, there's been a nice little spoon for scooping it into your hand instead of just, putting your whole paw in there. So
I like how she was teaching us and the crew some Hindi.
Yes.
Yeah.
Pyaz sounds like the cool
Pyaz.
kid in school.
That made me laugh as well. I thought that was really funny.
Maybe there'll be some big BA fans that have kids and name them Allison and Pyaz.
Don't give me ideas.
I also like that she takes her Texas homeland traditions as well, and she turned the sabzi into a breakfast taco.
I really like that as well. It's kind of similar, we'll come on to it in a bit, but when Rick kind of mashes up his Mexican heritage with his upbringing in Texas as well, I really like when you get that kind of fusion of influences on their lives. I think that's really nice. And it looked delicious. I would totally eat that as a breakfast tortilla.
I think that cumin is a good bridge between the cuisines too. They use that a lot in
Yes.
Indian food and Mexican food. So I think that would be a lovely breakfast taco.
For sure. And she burnt the potatoes, which I love burning stuff as well. So that got a big thumbs up from me. In fact, it was really funny because that day when I watched that video, I'd made dinner and I got really annoyed at Russ because I'd chopped some onions and I'd put them in the pan and I'd just left them because the pan wasn't quite at the right temperature yet, so it was still warming up, but I purposefully didn't leave them because I've remembered in a BA video, maybe it was Molly or Carla or someone said, if you want something to brown, don't move it, don't stir it, like keep it still until it's browned. So I was like, I'm just going to put these onions in the pan, let it come up to temperature while I do like the next bit of the recipe, chop whatever needs chopping next. And Russ came into the kitchen and just started like, because he heard it sizzling, he started like moving it around and I was like, leave it alone, what are you doing? And he was like, I'm helping you, it's gonna burn. And I was like, I want it to burn.
And he never touched your food again.
Well, then we watched this video and I was like, see, burnt food is good.
He was the Rappo to your Molly.
Right?
Oh.
That's it. It was when they made their stupid Brock Bolo. That's when I remember that. She was like, if you want it to brown, don't move it. Yeah, exactly.
I thought Priya had a good quote that maybe we could all relate to, which is, I love when my food turns out edible.
Yeah, that was funny.
Totally.
Put that on a t-shirt.
Yeah, as you guys were saying, like, you really like her attitude. It's just like she's really down to earth and just is like just really excited to be here, you know? Like, oh my God, I'm in the test kitchen, like making food. Let's do it.
Yeah.
I feel like I want to be best friends with Priya.
Yeah, she's a really nice lady.
I just want to hang out with her.
What do you think prompted her to talk about shark movies?
Yeah, that was like out of nowhere, right? They never put any context for it. Like, I was like, why is she talking about sharks?
She's like, by the way, shark movies.
Yeah. Something about how it's unrealistic that sharks are the bad guys, like in Jaws, when they're like naturally not aggressive, whereas zombies.
Yeah, I
They
know.
just want to hurt people.
Maybe they were talking about
first
Halloween
of all,
costumes.
one of those things doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Next, we have, oh my goodness, the long-awaited next edition of Andy's series. Andy learns how to cook Senegalese food. I think they call this Andy Explores.
Yeah, they do.
I think so.
Once again, I was really impressed by all of the, like, it's only the second episode, but it's already established in like the graphics and the music and all of that. I feel like it's totally formed in contrast to like the Molly tries things, which still feels like it's finding its footing. This just feels so on point.
Yeah, it's got a real
That's what you
strong
get with
identity.
different directors or different producers.
Yeah. I really enjoyed that Andy's got an Andy Boy sticker on his screen, which I noticed when he was looking at the computer. But yeah, I loved this episode. I really enjoyed the first episode they did of this series, and so the fact that he's moved on and done a second one and it's finally come out was really great. I don't know much about Senegal at all. I'm really awful at geography, which is another fun fact at me. Like, people laugh when unless I've been there, I find it really hard to like remember where things are on a map. So obviously I know Senegal is a place that exists, but I don't know anyone from Senegal. I've never been there. So when the map came up and it was like West Africa, I was like, oh, it's in Africa. And Rush just looked at me like, you fucking moron. Because I love learning about new cuisines from different countries that I don't know much about. So I was really excited to hear about all the different ingredients and how they cook them and what the influences are on that country based on its history. So it was a real school day for me from start to finish, this video, and I loved it.
I really enjoyed it for similar reasons. This is a cuisine that I really knew nothing about going into the video, whereas with the other video, I had some familiarity with Chinese food, not necessarily Szechuan food, but I definitely had more to learn in this video. And from what we've seen of all of the test kitchen staff, I feel like they all demonstrate being good students. They all want to learn and they listen to the experts. But I feel like Andy is maybe an especially good choice for this, particularly in this video. He seemed so keen to listen, to impress them with what he had learned and then to demonstrate that he could do it as well. I was really laughing when he was giving his tasting notes on the spices, on the ingredients, and was just so eager to be right. He was like, is that right? I can't tell. Because Pierre was a little bit inscrutable at times, and that just really made me laugh how hard Andy was trying to succeed. Oh, and how he looked at the camera all smug and smiling when he was complimented on his sauce later.
Yeah. He's like, say that again. And he was like, it's beautiful.
Well, I like that when he was trying the spices, like they kept telling him, like, you don't have to take that much. Like, it could be a smaller amount. And he would just be like, nope, I'm going for it. Like, with confidence.
I liked learning that Andy can speak French.
Oh, yeah. That was cool. I liked learning that he could speak a bit of French as well. That was nice. And yeah, it was interesting to hear that Senegal has those influences from its French colonization, but also, was it Vietnamese, they said as well? And I just thought that I think I knew a bit about the French colonization part, but Vietnamese I had no idea about. And it was just really interesting to see how those influences kind of came together to produce something that's got its own Senegalese identity. Had never heard of any of the ingredients they were talking about before, like none of the spices. I think I might have heard of moringa, but I couldn't tell you what it tasted like. Fonio I'm fascinated by, and I really want to try some now because it looks really delicious. It seemed like a bit of a cross between quinoa and couscous, from what I could tell. But it was very interesting to find out about how it's produced, and why it's a good thing to kind of try and get your hands on, because it's a more sustainable crop, I guess, because it grows in like really, really arid conditions. I never heard of red palm oil before. Again, it was interesting to hear about the differences between that and like palm oil that you're not supposed to buy. So yeah, I just found the whole thing absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to be like, this food is like this food that I know of.
Yeah.
Because it was so unique in of itself. I feel like the closest thing I kind of related to would be like gumbo.
Yeah, especially that seafoody dish that they did, right?
With the okra.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okra. I love okra.
I love okra too.
Yeah.
I really wanted to eat that dish.
It all looked delicious. The chicken yassa looked great.
LJ, how do you feel about plantains?
Oh, okay. So yeah, that I actually wrote yuck because I can't.
They're
I'm
not
sorry.
bananas at all.
I know they're not.
They do
but
taste
I don't-
different.
I don't. I don't want them. There's an Indian restaurant near me that is vegetarian. They use a lot of plantain in most of their curries. So I have a really limited choice when I go there because I'm like, anything with plantain, and I'm like, no, I'm sorry, I can't do it.
So disappointed. No.
Well, it was Carla at the end who was eating it with him, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and I loved how she's like, thanks for making me plantains. And I thought it was interesting, like, she did the banana bread, and then she really loves plantains, and then I felt bad for LJ.
I liked how quick Carla was with descriptors for the ingredients. That really helped me imagine what the food tasted like too. But I had to laugh at when she described that natutu as chocolate foot.
Chocolate foot. Yeah.
Wow. That was
All I could think
funny.
of was that Friends episode where Rachel makes the trifle with the meat, and
Yes.
Ross says, it tastes like feet.
Well, going from nope, I'm not going to make a chocolate foot reference. We're just going to go to pro chefs blindly taste cured meats.
I want to do this. Can I do this? Could someone do this for me so that I can do this?
You could do it.
I was trying to think of a way that we could orchestrate a blind taste test for all of us for the podcast, but I just couldn't think of a way for it to be double blind for all of us
Yeah.
across different states and countries.
We'd have to get, like, a moderator in each location to, like...
Yeah, to source it and do it like a, partner or sibling or something. I think, I don't want to blow my own trumpet, but I eat a lot of cured meat. I feel like I know them pretty well, and I feel like I
Not
would
to
have
brag or anything.
No, not to brag or anything, but I feel like I would have absolutely nailed this. So I really want to do it in some way to try and like prove that to myself, whether I'm just like full of my own like self-importance and like confidence of knowing my meats, or whether it's actually harder than it looks, because like hardly any of them got the country ham, and I'm sorry, but country ham tastes nothing like prosciutto. So how the hell they were getting that mixed up, I don't know.
I feel like it was the texture for them. They were like also focused on the texture of it.
But it tastes different. I don't understand how you can mix those up.
Delaney knew.
Yes, Delaney was brilliant. He really nailed
He
it.
killed it.
Yeah,
I was really impressed by Delaney in this episode.
right.
And Brad. What?
Brad was it. Brad, like,
Brad turned into a super genius, just like picking up something. He's like,
doesn't even.
Yeah,
have
he
to
was
smell it
definitely
or
the
taste
dark
it.
horse.
Yeah, I was impressed by I was really impressed by Priya, how she kept going like, I was a vegetarian for the first 21 years of my life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she did really well. Maybe it's because all of the tastes of meat are so fresh in her mind that it was just, you know, she's able to differentiate better. But I also really enjoyed that she was really, like, had an aversion to bologna. She was like, oh, yuck.
She
Yeah.
just tossed it out at the end. I mean, I have to agree with her. I find bologna so gross. And as soon as I saw it, I was just like, oh, I feel bad for everyone having to eat bologna.
I don't think we really have bologna here. Or if we do, we don't call it bologna. We definitely have, like, lunch meat, but we
no,
don't call
I think
it
there's
bologna.
only one bologna.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I don't think I've ever had it, because it's never looked that appetizing, and it's not something we have over here. So
It's not real meat in the way that you said Pringles aren't real potatoes. It's like,
yeah.
yeah, like pushed together meat.
Like hot dogs.
Pushed
Yeah.
together.
On that actually real meat subject, I thought it was hilarious how Brad was like, "This is not meat," when it was the vegan sausage. Like, he knew straight away. He was like, "No, this isn't me. I'm not having it." And like, he was like, "You sick bastards for putting that in front of me."
Yeah, I wanted to hear Justine's thoughts because everyone seemed to have collective disgust for the vegan sausage. Molly and Brad were pretty down on it.
Yeah, it just makes me feel really good when people are like, ew, ugh, that's what you eat, gross, barf. Bleh. I'm like, thanks. Yeah, that's what I eat. Thanks.
You hear that, Brad and Molly? You
Yeah.
hurt her feelings.
Yeah,
I thought it
guys.
was funny that they could tell straight away that it wasn't meat. I didn't think it was great that they were so down on it, because, you know, I'm sure. Well, I know from eating vegan stuff, like, a lot of it's actually pretty good.
Well, yeah, I don't want to get on my like little vegan high horse here, but I think I talked about this with even like Amanda. I'm like, if people
Yeah.
don't constantly eat or try a bunch of vegan products, if they've only tried like one thing, I'm like, well, that one thing is not how like every single thing tastes.
Right.
And, like, there's so many differences in textures and in what things are made of and flavorings, and even just the past couple of years, major changes.
Right.
I mean, like, as we know with the Impossible Burger, even, you know?
Yeah, I agree.
So just because you tried one vegan thing does not equate it to all vegan things, is what I say. The end.
Agree with you.
I'm super proud that I actually know what Jamon Iberico is because of
I'm really curious to know whether this video was filmed before or after Molly's Jamon Iberico episode.
I figured it had to be after, because they had to do something with it.
That's was also kind of my thinking as well. And I would have really laughed if she got it wrong. I was also sort of hoping that she would have misidentified the terrible bologna as her beloved mortadella. I would have
Right.
laughed forever. I
Yeah,
was secretly
yeah.
hoping for that to happen, but
Yeah.
oh well.
Oh wait, we haven't even talked about how it's a whole new lineup of people.
Yeah, they've got
yeah.
Sola and Claire, right?
Claire is there. We
Yeah.
get Claire. We get Sola.
Yeah. I felt so sorry for Rick, who got like a big fat zero.
Yeah.
How?
This category.
How?
I bet he could do cheese. Was he in cheese? Did they not have him? I don't
I
remember.
can't remember.
I don't
but
think
remember
Rick was
either.
in cheese.
I was surprised that he didn't get any.
Also, there was no Andy in this video, right?
No, maybe
Right.
he was on holiday.
No. No Gabby.
Yeah,
Yep.
no Gabby,
So we
no
got a
Andy.
different cast for this one.
I like that they are setting a precedent that they can mix up the people, though. That's good. That gives them more flexibility.
Which leads me to think that they shot a whole bunch of series with this group of people, and that's who we'll be seeing for the next 2 months.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will be interested to see on the next one if it's a paired one, what the pairings are this time. Because that's something
Yeah.
we've been talking about is like, we like some of the pairings and then some of them, like the Chris and Gabby, we were feeling like he was overpowering her a little bit. So I think it'll be interesting to see who he gets paired with and all of the various pairings this time around.
Looking to the future, I'm also curious to know who's going to come out on top of these blind taste tests if they do more. Like, who's the ultimate taster?
Oh, I see. Like adding all the scores together, like who's the ultimate. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because it's not Chris.
I know. This is so
Chris is really falling down on his title.
right?
Well, speaking of Chris, let's talk about Chris and Rick making the perfect stuffing.
I have mixed feelings about this stuffing.
Really?
Ooh.
I mean, okay, so first of all, I love the pair of them together, and I think it is awesome. I think the part that I have the hardest time with is corn nuts.
Ooh.
You don't like corn nuts?
I am not a fan of corn nuts. It seemed like they just, like, that was the thing they stuck with, and then they were sort of, like, making the recipe around it eventually.
I didn't get that because they did they did the 4 batches that were regular
corns.
bread, corn bread, and then the final one was with that corn nut mix, and that's when they were deciding like that. I will say that I felt like it was very much Rick made this thing in the beginning
Yes.
and he wanted to make it, and there was no
absolutely.
changing that.
I completely agree
Yeah.
with this. I thought it was a really interesting dynamic because on the one hand, they get along so well, but on the other hand, I feel like that they both silently hated what the other was making, but just decided not to express it and were both trying to gently guide the other in the other direction. I kind of want to coin the term argue agreement because I feel like they were simultaneously always disagreeing, but at the same time arriving at the same conclusion.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. It'd be like Chris would make something and then Rick would be like, yeah, but it sucks.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with what you said, Justine. Rick had this recipe in mind. He wasn't going to deviate from it. Chris tried to suggest other alternatives, sometimes opposite alternatives, in fact. And there were little comments that I weren't sure if they were purposeful digs or whatnot. But when he said, yeah, I just like a stuffing that, doesn't include every animal on the farmyard, whereas Rick's had chicken
Lard.
and pork. And I thought that was maybe kind of purposeful. And he also said, oh, we don't want that crumbly texture, whereas the original Martinez
crumble,
recipe
yeah.
was mush, essentially. So it was pretty interesting.
So the previous episodes of Making Perfect, not just in this season, but even in the pizza one as well, I've been guided through the way the episode's been put together and their thought process. Like, their thought process was always super clear to me all the way through, in terms of, okay, we're exploring these avenues, we're narrowing down, then we're exploring these avenues, and then we're narrowing down all the different elements. With this one, halfway through, I was feeling really lost because I was like, I don't know what they're talking about here, because they were talking about how at the beginning I understood that they had 2 directions that they could potentially go in, like Rick's cornbread based Mexican infused kind of stuffing versus Chris's more traditional, but then they were like, okay, well, we can't agree, so let's try and make a hybrid. But in that kind of hybrid, I don't know, I just kind of lost the sense of their avenues. Like, even the little tree diagram that they bring up to help you with that got confusing at one point, because it was like they had 4 options and then it was like, we're going to do none of them, but then there was another 4 corn options, and I was just like, what is going on? Like, I don't understand. Ultimately, at the end where they got to, I thought, well, that does sound like a dish that I would be interested in making. But then at the end, they got super focused on what it was going to be like as a leftover. And they got really into this fried rice thing, and they had this dish, this fried rice leftover stuffing dish in their minds, and it felt like they were trying to make a stuffing that would work in that dish because they really liked the sound of it. Whereas I was like, well, that's all very well and great if you make a stuffing that works in that dish, but what if that stuffing doesn't then work with the Thanksgiving meal that's being prepared? Like, the leftovers shouldn't be your end goal, right?
Yeah.
I felt like they were aiming for the wrong end game, if you know what I mean. So that's where I got confused.
What if there is no leftover stuffing? What if everybody loves
Right?
the stuffing so much it's all gone and then you don't have a leftover?
I have to wonder if that was Rick's influence coming forward again, because Chris himself acknowledges in the beginning of the video during the brainstorming that he wants to be really cognizant of the whole menu. And then we don't see that play out in the end product.
I just want to know what the difference is between the Martinez stuffing that they make in the beginning and the final stuffing that's the perfect stuffing at the end. Was it just the corn nuts?
Yeah, the corn nuts, and also they cubed the bread. Did they cube the bread in the original one?
No,
remember.
it was crumbled up.
Yeah,
in
it was
the
crumbled.
original.
Yeah. Look, I'm not anti a cornbread-based stuffing because that's what I do. Mine has a more, when I do it, it's more of a fruity vibe because it's the cornbread. I make my own cornbread, I crumble it, and I do it with orange flavor and with the cranberries. And I kind of like the idea of having the cornbread and mixing it with like the sausage meat and doing like that more traditional mashup of the two. So I'm really interested in trying this stuffing. But yeah, it was their thought process got confusing to me. I agree with you in that they didn't really have a clear methodical process that they were following that I could follow along with them. It just felt like they were trying to like steer each other down a windy path and like just kind of ended up doing what Rick kind of wanted with a few nods to Chris, like, which I don't think is in the spirit of making perfect and what they're trying to do there. But
To your point, Amanda, I also think that Chris was not won over by the corn nuts. He seemed to have reservations about it, and he said that he was nervous about telling Rappo that they had made this recipe with pulverized corn nuts. So I think that Chris would probably even agree with you.
It's kind of a bit scary that, you know, we know that they've put everything into this basket of like, these are their covers and the covers integrated with the video. Like, these are their dishes for this month that they're presenting as all of Bon Appetit. So just to be like, well, what if we don't like them? Like,
Yeah.
what if we're like, about them?
Yeah. The only part that I thought was maybe in concert with other parts of the menu, but again, it was focused on the leftover fried rice, was including those Brussels sprouts leaves.
Right.
Because we know from the preview for Christina and Claire's side that they're making Brussels sprouts.
Right.
So maybe that is a nod to including other parts of the menu, but kind of hard to say at this point.
yeah. I did love their 80s karaoke breaks though.
I did too, yeah.
That was good.
80s montage, slow clap, and donuts. That's all I want from Chris and Rick. Yes.
That and Rick mentioning Fire Island, which he's done quite a few times in these last 3 videos, which just made me think of his Instagram and hashtag Summer of Rick.
Yes.
I do want to shout out Rick's dad, though, because he was really adorable.
Yes.
Oh,
He
I
was
loved
sweet.
Rick's dad. He was so cute. And when he made them breakfast, that was so cute as well.
Yeah.
Okay, next we have trying everything on the menu at a famous NYC taco shop featuring Mr. Rick Martinez.
I want to go. This restaurant's on my list now.
I love Mexican food so much. This
So
looked
much.
delightful.
But I can't get it over here like that. Like, you don't understand.
I'm very sorry.
Okay, was the vegetarian dish cactus?
Yes.
Yes, I
I'm
think
so
so.
confused.
Yeah.
Yeah, the nopales.
Yeah, and the Nepal.
Have you had
Yeah.
cactus?
No.
So there is a chain restaurant that's not too bad over here, a Mexican one called Oaxaca. I mentioned it in the blog that I did about the top 5 Mexican restaurants in London. If that's of any interest to anyone, you can go and read that on our blog.
Podappetitpodcast.com.
Yeah, thank you. But yeah, Oaxaca do some vegetarian dishes and they incorporate cactus into them. And I have had them before, but they kind of, obviously they don't have the spikes in them.
Yes.
They take the spikes out.
I got that.
But it kind of, I don't know, like with all the other Mexican flavorings and everything, I just feel like it just tastes like just any, I don't know, it doesn't have like a very strong flavor as far as I can recall. Certainly not one that overpowers like all the other Mexican spices and the cheese and whatever else is in there.
I would agree with that. And it's very specific regionally. It's a regional Mexican cuisine, but I don't know off the top of my head which region. I was really interested to know where the founders were from in Mexico because they kept referencing home, but then never said where home was. So I'm a little curious to know exactly which part of Mexico this food originates from. Rick says that he's from northern Mexico, and I'm wondering if perhaps that is the same for this restaurant. But I thought it looked really good. I was also impressed by the adobada, the spinning meat stick. And actually, as much as I've seen that meat and seen it in other cuisines or for gyros or El Pastor, is that? Yes, the other one. But I never really understood the mechanics behind how it was all stacked on the spit there. So I was interested to hear the little explanation of the layers of pounded meat just all put on the spike and how it rotates and then you shave it off. I thought that looked delicious and I learned a little bit too.
That made me laugh that bit because in the UK, I don't think you have them so much in the US, but in the UK, nearly every major city has several kebab houses and they all have those cones of meat and everybody always goes there for a kebab on the way home from being drunk at 2 a.m. So when he was like, whenever I walk in here, I'm mesmerized by that cone of meat. And me and Russ were like, said every drunk person in the UK at 2 a.m.
You need one of those, Amanda, for yourself today.
Yes, I do. I seriously, as you guys have been talking about this one, my stomach was like, oh, you have not yet eaten today. That is a thing that I can do now.
I was really won over by the queso taco where they substituted the tortilla for just a whole bunch of fried cheese.
Yeah, that was good. But also that fried quesadilla that made Rick like leave the restaurant and like whisper lovingly to it in the corner.
That was cool. That was very cool. I've never seen anything like that.
That was
really
good.
Funny too.
Yeah, so funny. I was just waiting the entire episode for Delaney to just drip a bunch of taco down his shirt. I was really like, that is a brave choice of color of shirt for this video.
Well, that was like when Molly wore all white to the deli. I thought that was quite brave as well. I appreciated Rick's taco tip of tilt your head, not the taco.
I appreciate
Good tip.
So I have a theory, though, because we talked about how Delaney was like killing it with the cured meats.
Oh, yeah.
I think because he does this series where he tastes everything on a menu, he's just like honing his tasting abilities.
Yeah. That's a good theory. I think that could work.
Delaney's the super taster.
Yeah, he's overtaken through experience rather than talent.
Yeah.
I thought it was really interesting in this restaurant, particularly applying the rules of this series of videos to this restaurant, because one of the rules is take one perfect bite. And I feel like with tacos or tostadas where you only get like your first bite can only be from one angle. Like I think if you're eating a tostada, the perfect bite is actually somewhere in the middle because you can angle it so that you get enough of the like topping or whatever on there. Whereas if you've only got your one shot at it from like a fully formed tostada, you're kind of getting mainly tortilla and then a little bit, like depending on how big your mouth is. So I just thought like there was a little flaw in the rule system there, because I was like, if it was me, I would be like, can I get a knife and fork and like cut it so that I can get the middle, because that's my perfect bite.
That's a good point. So do you guys prefer flour or corn tortillas, or does it depend on the dish?
I really like their explanation of the distinction of them.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, on average, I think I would gravitate towards choosing a corn tortilla if I didn't know better. But I did think it was interesting that they were like different things work better depending on what the topping is and what the filling is and what the meat is that you're using. So I'll think about that more next time.
Same, yeah. I normally gravitate to flour, but yeah, I'm going to think about it now.
I also normally gravitate toward flour. I like the chewy texture a lot, and I like that it seems to be fattier than the corn tortillas.
It holds together better.
Yeah. It's got that nice silky texture on the outside too. But I do like corn. I love corn flavor in general. But yeah, again, different applications.
Yeah, I also gravitate towards flour. I think also because I prefer like a soft tacos and things like that. And when it's a corn one, it always crumbles apart faster for me.
Side story. So at work for Halloween, us and another company got us, I wouldn't say it's a taco truck, but a guy making tacos in like a setup, you know, where it's like a grill in front of him, blah, 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 blah. I did not participate because he was using one pair of tongs to touch everything. The tortillas, the vegetables, and the 2 different kinds of meat. So,
Dude.
I was not happy about that at all.
Did you tell him that was a problem? And that's why.
No,
Aw.
I'm not going to make a thing about it. But I mean, like, yeah, that's what I think about. It's like, because then, like, the cooking surface has now got, like,
Yeah, totally.
meat on it, the everything, the vegetable. You don't know. That's why.
Yeah. My favorite thing is to make a thing about things. If I'd been there, I'd have been like, oi!
Definitely bring you along. That was my taco experience this week, and I was sad about it. So.
Aw, Justine.
But then I got tacos at a vegan place that made me happy. Okay.
Okay, happy ending. Yay.
All because I was craving it after this video. But moving on to more Mexican food.
More Rick.
More Rick.
More Rick.
Rick makes pork tamales. That
Oh,
entrance,
yeah.
though. Ooh.
That entrance.
Rick's entrances are my sexuality.
Yes.
I cannot get enough of them. I want to start doing it every time I enter somewhere.
I think he was completely deserving of that intro. I would definitely toss flower petals upon someone making tamales for me because I love tamales so much. It might be one of my favorite types of Mexican food. My former coworker's mother used to make homemade tamales. Everyone in the office would give her our order for the holiday.
Wow.
And it was the best homemade tamales I've ever had. And I was really interested to watch this video because, again, I think this might be a regional to Mexico thing, but all of the really authentic tamales I've had, pork tamales with the red chili, have a single green olive in the middle of the tamale.
Oh.
And that's just the way I've always had it. And I'm curious to know where that difference comes in. And I was really keen to see if Rick would do that. And then he didn't. And he didn't even talk about it. So that's something I'm interested in learning more about.
Oh, I've never had tamales, but I've always wanted to have them. And we just don't get them over here, as far as I know. I mean, I kind of had an idea of what they were, but I had no idea how you go about making them. So this was a great video for me to learn all about that.
I did not grow up around tamales. I'd never seen them. I never experienced them. So sometime in my adult life, I did encounter tamales, and I didn't know how to eat them at all. Like, for me, immediately you would think you'd eat the outside too.
Yeah, right?
So I'm really happy. Like, I actually have only ever eaten them, like, open it up and then just eat it with a fork. I was like, oh, I guess you eat them with your hands too.
I like how offended Rick was at Shola's suggestion that she should get a spoon to eat it.
Yeah.
Especially after she failed at filling it correctly at first, too. I think Rick was kind of done with her.
I did really like how he kind of introduced the communal aspect of preparing and then eating them, because that to me just seemed like I could imagine him doing that with his family, like when he was growing up, and how you get, you know, like the older generation teaching the younger generation how to do it, and you grow up with it, and it's just like a really just like a very communal way of eating food together. And I like that they recreated that in the test kitchen rather than Rick just kind of doing it himself and then being like, someone come and try this, you know. That was nice.
My understanding is that tamales in particular are a food where it's kind of based around the event of making it together.
Yeah.
I have a confession. I thought tamales were a kind of pepper.
Oh.
You thought they were a kind of cinnamon candy?
Like, hot tamale.
Hot tamale. I literally was like, oh, it must be a hot pepper. Now I know differently. So I've never eaten one.
Clearly. I have a question. In the background of the video, on the bench by the window, there were, in some shots, loads of black trash bags covering up stuff. And I wondered whether that was something that we're not supposed to know about until a future video, but it definitely got my, I don't know if anyone else noticed that.
Wow. No.
Well,
I didn't notice
go
that.
back and check, because, it's there.
They were censoring the video.
Yeah, I know. I was like, what is under there that we're not allowed to see?
Wow. Good eyes.
And even though Rick's father wasn't in this video, I liked the reference to him and his apparently horrible blender that Rick equated to not being any better than just chewing up the chilies, which I found really funny.
Yeah. I thought it was so funny because I feel his pain, because whenever I go back to my parents' house to cook something, they have a couple of pieces of kitchen equipment that are kind of on their last legs and they haven't replaced yet. And there is nothing worse. Like, it's a completely different ball game trying to cook in a kitchen with equipment that just doesn't work versus equipment that is like up to the task. And it's like, it's the difference between a complete joy and like a complete nightmare.
I feel like Amanda has something to say about this.
Right?
Yeah. Like, every time I cook.
Yeah.
Like, literally. Because I know we talked about it before, like the knife episode of the test kitchen talks, and I was cooking with my husband this past week, and I was like, it's so amazing how much easier this sort of knife is to cut. And he was like, what knife were you using before? And I was like, a steak knife. And he was like, oh no. So
Yeah.
having the right equipment. Yep. I'm
It's
learning.
huge.
I'm
It's
learning.
huge. Yeah.
You guys are helping me.
Yay. We're all helping each other. Okay, gang. That's all the videos. Wow. Now's the time that we've recapped. We are going to talk about what our favorite videos were and what dishes we would make. Amanda, what do you think?
Okay. So I think my favorite, this was hard for me to pick. I think my favorite was the Brad Makes Ginger Beer.
Okay.
But the professional chefs blindly taste cured meats almost took over. And then as far as what I would make, I honestly think I would try to make Ruffles. Like, it seemed fun.
You'd have to buy a fancy French, like...
Yeah, you have to buy a $150 mandolin.
Yeah.
Maybe, I'm not saying I'm going to do it for our show, but, if I could make it, I would try it. Yeah. What about you, Meg?
I agree that my favorite video was, unsurprisingly, It's Alive. So Brad Makes Ginger Beer. It just made me laugh so much. It was such a delightful episode. And I'm going to be real, none of the recipes really screamed out to me in this batch. There's not one where I've thought, I absolutely have to make that. I think that the roasted pork with the fennel apple salad looked the tastiest to me. But if I'm being real with myself, I'm probably not going to make that.
I want you to make it.
I know. But I'll say that as my answer. I'll keep it in my back pocket. Maybe I'll do it someday. What about you, LJ?
My favourite, I did love Brad Makes Ginger Beer. It was a classic. It's Alive territory. So that's up there. But I think I'm going to go with Molly and Carla making the mashed potatoes and gravy. Just because I am loving the Thanksgiving content. I love Molly and Carla and their big Molly and Carla energy. So I think that has to do it for me. I just think they're great together. And I actually think that would also be, it is the recipe that I am definitely going to make. I've already started planning my Thanksgiving dinner and I'm going to do their mashed potatoes. So basically the same video for both questions.
We didn't talk about it, but I think we have to acknowledge that there's been huge controversy online about the potatoes. People did not like them. They called them soup potatoes.
So actually, that's true. We haven't talked about it, but I did mean to say they are too sloppy for me. I'm not going to make them that consistency. I'm going to make them my normal consistency, but put the crunchy topping on the top.
That sounds like a good compromise.
Okay.
My favorite video, I think, is no surprise, recreating Guy Fieri's trash can nachos. I love this series with Chris. I love it. I love the way it's done. I love the way he does it. I am down for it whenever it's on. I agree with Meg that not a lot of dishes really appeal, and there are actually not a lot of dishes general in this list of cookability.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know? I know that the Sabzi is vegan, but it's not the kind of food that I like. I am also going to go with mashed potatoes because I freaking love mashed potatoes. But again, I don't know if I'd make their exact thing or like the crispy bits or stuff. But I will say that, like I said, the video itself had me be interested in the types of potatoes I'm using. So when I make mashed potatoes this year, I'm really going to think about it more.
Are you going to do 3x3 tastes? Like you're going to do baked, boiled, fried, and 3 different varieties?
9 different batches of potatoes.
Don't have that big a kitchen.
That made my OCD heart so happy.
Oh, excellent. That's all those videos that we covered. Whew. Yeah. Now is the time we do our shout outs. Oh my goodness. We had so many. Wanted to say thank you to everyone who listened to our first holiday special. Yes, first, because you know we've got another one coming around the corner. We got so much feedback that unfortunately I can't say it all here. But thank you to Heidi from Vibrant Visionaries, Mary,
Yay!
Jen from One Person's Trash is Our Treasure, Doug, The Thirst Podcast, Diana from Happily Ever Aftermath, and Steph from Anglophilia Podcast, all for reaching out to us and saying specific things that they liked about our Halloween episode. Furthermore, Mandy K of the Eloquent Gushing podcast listened to Amanda's Boozy Ice Pops and said it sounded great.
Thank you, Mandy.
Erica from Les Represent listened to my Snickers side dish and loved my breakdown of how my pals, all you guys, speak. Weird for me to talk about, but people like it. Okay. Also, my dad messaged me to say he listened to my Snickers episode and told me to stop swearing so much.
I loved your dad's feedback on that.
That was so great.
Sorry, Dad.
Sorry, not sorry.
Sorry, not sorry. I am who I am.
Let me be me.
Mary shared with us a dish she was making, a creamy pasta primavera.
Yummy. Loving the parental feedback.
Margaret wanted to let us know that she's totes getting a dehydrator and there's miscellaneous powders in her future.
Thanks, Margaret. I'll try some of those powders.
Yeah. Gemma Tomlinson got encouragement from us for her to make a vegan Werther's original. So that's very cool. And lastly, Erica again wanted to know our answer to Meme Appetit's poll on what BA fans should be called. And we have opinions.
Yes, we do.
So a peek behind the scenes, I answered for all of us on our collective Twitter account. So that is not necessarily representative of everyone's opinions, but I answered Bonheads because I think of the options Meme Appetit supplied, it was the easiest to make singular because I think it'd be odd to say I'm a fan Appetit or I'm a BA army. So I went with Bonheads. I thought it was cute.
Yeah, I like my joke answer of appetizers.
I liked BAP's Bon Appetit pals.
Mrs. Casper also suggested BAPS on Twitter. So you guys are like-minded.
Yeah.
I said BA pals so that we can get pals going too.
Yeah, exactly. BAPS.
I also saw some further Twitter responses. One was bonbons, which I thought was very cute.
Well, thank you everybody for getting in touch with us on social media and sharing what you thought of our episodes. This week we have a review to share from Allison from Resolved Mysteries podcast. She left a 5-star review titled, "Great, now I'm starving."
Welcome to our world.
She says, I have never seen an episode of Bon Appetit in my life, and it completely does not matter. The hosts are so great talking about food and recipes. This podcast will make you hungry and happy to listen to 4 women with diverse backgrounds come together to share their love of food.
Yay. Thanks, Alison.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us this week. Next time on the podcast, you'll be hearing LJ making Molly's pumpkin bread with maple butter. Ooh, ooh.
More bread!
More bread! Bread season!
Thanks for listening to Bon Appetit, a Bon Appetit fan cast.
We'd love to hear from you, so find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest at pod_appetit.
And on Facebook at Pod Appetit Podcast.
You can also email us at podappetitpodcast@gmail.com and find all of our episodes on our website, podappetitpodcast.com.
Until next time, the test kitchen is closed.
Hey everybody, this is Taralyn Keel, host of the Beyond 6 Seconds podcast. This podcast goes beyond the 6-second first impression to share the extraordinary stories of everyday people who are making the world a better place. Every week, I interview people who are starting their own businesses, volunteering in their communities, or working with exciting new technologies to advance our world. If you're looking for honest, real stories about how people just like you and me overcome challenges to achieve great things in their lives, then you'll love this podcast. You can find it at www.beyond6seconds.com and on your favorite podcast player.